Good evening, and it's again nice to be back and nice to see all of you here again. And I think there are a couple of students from Australia, so it's morning there, John and Ray.
Geshe.
So again, thank you for making the time and to joining. And again, we'll be continuing the Lam-Rim. And so maybe we can start as usual with a short breathing exercise to quiet our mind by watching our breath for a few moments. So then we can try to generate a good intention by thinking and reflecting. Even though we have this incredible precious human life with full of potential, life can be very fragile. And end to the life can come quickly, unexpectedly. Therefore, we have to make most of it while we're still alive and while we're still healthy. And make our life meaningful. And the way to make our life meaningful to engage in the Dharma practice through study, reflection, contemplation, meditation. And through the practice of Dharma, to be able to actualize our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be most and greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient being. So may our coming here together become cause and conditions to encourage to give us inspirations. In engaging our practice. And even we can't make much progress to have a strong imprint, so we can make progress more easily in the future. Okay, so then we can do the prayer before the teaching. Yeah, we do the praise to Buddha Shakyamuni one time first. To the founder, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, the fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge, in good conduct, Sukata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dhamma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms Adam, in all aspects, to the Supreme Faith I pay homage. Can you, oh, I think I was looking and now I lost. Okay. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind truly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberrations, a flame of lamp, and illusions, and drop of dew or bubble, a dream and flash of lightning, a cloud, cease condition things as such. Through this merit may all sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four of force, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground adorned with perfumed stone flower adorned with the Mount Meru, four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land, O holy and perfect, pure Lama from the cloud of compassion that form in the skies of your Dhammakaya wisdom. Please release the rain of vast and profound Dhamma precisely in accordance with the needs of those betrayed. Idam Guru Rama Mandala Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sense. Sangye Chodan Togi Chonam La Chanju Badu Danika. Lagi Geshe Gibe Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sangye Duba. Sangye Chodan Togi Chonam La Chanju Badu Dan. Lagi Geshe Gibe Sonam Dola Benje Sangye Duba. So, in terms of the middle Lam-Rim that we have been going through, you know, in terms of the main outlines. We have finished how to correctly and properly rely on the spiritual teachers, and then after relying correctly and properly on spiritual teachers, then engaging into the practice, and then in terms of engaging in practice, first encouraging to make take an essence from this life, and then how to train in the path, and within the how to train in the path, then training the path of small scope, training the path of middle scope, and training the path of great scope. And within the training the path of great scope, you know, cultivating the bodhicitta mind, and having cultivated the bodhicitta mind, taking the vows, and having taken the vows, then actually engage in the practice of the bodhisattvas, such as 6 perfections. And within the practice of 6 perfections, which are the perfection of 6 perfection, then we have finished up to the practice of perfection of generosity, and we are in the second in the second practice of the second perfection of the second perfection, which is the perfection of moral discipline or ethical discipline. And I think that is where we will be kind of continuing. And if you have the text, you know, it is on page number 164, and where it says, you know, how to train in ethics. So in terms of that, you know, it has 3 main points that in discussing on the moral ethic or ethical discipline. And so it is the entity or the nature of that practice, the ethic, and its subdivisions, you know, 3 type of the ethic disciplines, and then how to generate the ethic in one's mental continuum, you know. So it's going to be explained from those 3 points of view. And in first, the nature of the ethical discipline. What does ethical discipline here means, you know, when we talk about that, moral discipline or ethical discipline is a mental state. And so therefore it says, ethic is the mind of abandoning that is mentally turned away from the harming others, together with its basis. So it is as we have been discussing in the past, you know, including the practice with generosity, the main the most important and main is the mental state. And so here, the ethical discipline is a mental state that turn away from harming the other sentient beings. And that is the main, and when you have that state of mind, you know, when your mind is turned away from harming others, when you don't have any intention to, motivation or intention to hurt and harm others, then that will reflect in your speech, your thoughts, your actions, you know, and so, and others will come more easily. And this is mainly from the point of view of ethic of restraint. So here it is saying, in terms of 3 ethical discipline, the first one is the ethic of restraint, and from when you talk from mainly from that point of view, you know, so yeah. And so then the perfections of ethics or ethical discipline is, how can we perfect it? You know, how can someone perfect the practice of ethical discipline, you know, and we can perfect that through, you know, familiarizing through the practice with that state of mind. And as we familiarize it with more and more through repeating, practicing in our mind again and again, again and again, and through that, then we can complete and perfect the practice of ethical discipline, you know. That is how one can perfect and reach the perfections of ethical discipline. And it is not that you externally establish all sentient beings in freedom from all harm without exceptions. So it doesn't mean that you have kind of create a condition where sentient beings does not have any, where they don't receive any harm from others externally, you know. Because as just with generosity, you know, Buddha Shakyamuni, he has completed the practice of generosity, the practice of perfected the practice of morality or ethical discipline, but still there are sentient beings who are still receiving harm externally. So that doesn't mean when someone perfects the practice of moral discipline, that doesn't mean someone is able to clear all the external conditions that will bring harm to other sentient beings. More than that, it is a state of your mind, that the mind which turn away from wanting to hurt and harm others, harming others, when you perfect through practice that, as it get more and more stronger and more intense and more bigger, and that's through that's how you perfect the practice of the moral discipline. Okay, and so as it is said in Shantideva's engaging bodhisattva behavior, it says, achieving the mind of abandonment is taught as a perfection of ethics. So, you know, so Lama Tsongkhapa says, as Shantideva explained there. And then now it comes to the 3 subdivisions. And so those 3 subdivisions are, you know, the ethic of restraint, and the ethic of gathering virtuous qualities, and ethic of bringing about the welfare of sentient beings. 3 types of ethic. And the first one, the ethic of restraint or reframing, is, you know, the ethic of restraint from the point of view of their being accompanied by the motivation. If you include the motivation as well, then there are the 10 abandonment that abandon the 10 non-virtues. So basically, engaging in the 10 virtuous actions and reframing from 10 non-virtuous actions. You know, so that is the ethic of the restraint. From the point of view of its entity, it is the 7 abandoned body and speech that abandon the 7 non-virtues. So here what it means is, even though, you know, the 3 mental non-virtues thought or non-virtues, such as covetousness and ill will and wrong view, even though they do not harm other sentient beings directly, but they have the potentials to harm others. Because when you have those thoughts, that thought lead to your harmful speech and harmful actions. And so therefore, since there is that potential, but the actual harming, the real harming, directly harming, is those 7 non-virtuous actions, you know, through speech, you know, lying, engaging in divisive speech, using a harsh word, and meaningless idle gossips, and through body, you know, taking the life of others, stealing, taking the belonging of others, stealing it, and engaging in sexual misconduct. So those 7 acts are the one which really directly harms others. And so therefore refraining from such 7 non-virtuous actions and engage in 7 those virtuous actions as is entity. But when you include the motivation as then it becomes 10 virtuous actions that refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions. And those 3 mental ones, even though they don't hurt and harm directly others, but it has the potential to hurt. And so that is and in this is the intention of Bodhisattva's label, you know, in Asangas, in stating that ethic of restraint in the continuum of Bodhisattvas are 7 types of the vows of individual liberations. So it is that is the intention of that text of the Asanga. When those possessing the vows of individual liberation possess the Bodhisattva vows, the ethic of restraint of the actual vows of the individual liberation of a class of laity or the ordained, and the abandonment and the vows that are common to them in their continue. So what it means is when you are really trying to identify what is that ethic of restraint within the Bodhisattvas, you know, for example, if you have Bodhisattvas, whether it's a lay person or whether it's an ordained persons, and Bodhisattvas who have Bodhisattva vows, and also not only they have Bodhisattva vows, they also have lay vows, individual liberation vows, in terms of lay persons, you know, it can be 5 lay vows, or the 8 vows, you know. In terms of the ordain, you know, there are many different levels of vows, you know, novice and full ordinations, and so, or if whether it's the Bodhisattva, whether it's a lay person or ordained, and maybe that will come later. So their individual liberation vows, whatever that vow might be, is the ethic of restraint. So that is what he's saying when you try to identify that. And those who are unsuitable as a basis of the vows of individual liberations and possess both of vows, you know. So there are individuals who have both individual vow and both sets of vows, and then there are some who might not have individual vows, but who have both sets of vows, okay? In those cases, who have both sets of vows, but who does not have the individual liberation vows, or pratimosha vows, the ethic of restraint or abandonment and restraint or abandon either the natural misdeed. So that will be, natural misdeeds are the such as 10 non-virtuous actions, or proscribed misdeeds. Those are the one which not non-virtuous by its nature, but through the rules. For example, when we take a 24 hours lay vows of 8 lay vows, such as not eating after noon, and also for ordain, the Buddhas have made rules, certain rules. Eating after noon is not by naturally is a non-virtuous, but because of certain vows, if you break that, then it becomes non-virtuous, because you broke that promise, that vows. And so that is what it means by proscribed misdeed, that are common to individual liberation. So for those who have no liberation vows, but they can have similar to those liberation vows, such as refraining from any of 10 non-virtuous actions. What happened? Can you see?
Okay, we can see you.
We see you. Yeah. We see you.
So that all the vows of individual liberation in continuum bodhisattvas are vows of ethic in continuum bodhisattva. They are not actual bodhisattva vows. So here is the bodhisattvas can have two types of vows: bodhisattva vows within the bodhisattvas, or even non-bodhisattvas who have also bodhisattva vows and individual liberation vows. And it is not same. They are the individual liberation vows within the bodhisattvas is a vows within the bodhisattva, but is not a bodhisattva's vows. Because when we take the bodhisattva vows and individual bodhisattva vows, there's a very different in terms of the motivations, different in terms of the ceremony itself. And so there is many different, so those two are two different vows. So it is kind of, so when we are saying the ethical restraint, it is referring to mainly to the individual liberation vows or pratamoksha vows. So that is where it is making more clarity and differentiating the bodhisattva vows and the vows within the bodhisattvas. Okay. Whereas rest has a common basis for the bodhisattva vows, then the ethic, having identified what does the ethic of restraint, and now the ethic of gathering, second one, the virtuous qualities. So ethic of gathering virtuous qualities are to observe virtues such as 6 perfections, and practice of 6 perfections. So, and to generate which has not yet arisen in one's own continuum, so whatever practice of generosity or patience, joyous effort, meditative concentration, wisdom, or other practice of virtues, those who have not generated, trying to generate them, those virtues qualities, those virtues practice. And if you have already generated, to make sure that not to generate that which has already arisen, any of those 6 perfection practice or any of 6 perfections or other practices. And if it is not degenerated, but to make sure that it increase and to increase it more and more through the practice. So that is the practice of the ethic of getting the virtuous qualities. So, of course, it can be, getting virtuous qualities, any virtues, especially the practice of the six perfections. And then the third type of the ethic discipline is the ethic of bringing about the welfare of sentient beings. And there are 11 different types of helping and benefiting sentient beings, engaging welfare of other sentient beings, that is described in some of the sutras. And so that is the ethic of bringing about the welfare of sentient beings are to accomplish the welfare of sentient beings in this and future lives, through the ethic without any misdeed as appropriate. So engaging in the helping and benefiting and working for the welfare of others in this life and in future life without any misdeeds. Without harming, without hurting. And basically, normally they are, I think it also mentioned during the generosity, you often see, 11 different way of working for the welfare of sentient beings, and that comes through certain sutras. And Lama Tsongkhapa does not explain either in the middle Lam-Rim, each of them, or whether in the great Lam-Rim, but instead he said, look in his other writing, there is his writing commentary on the Asanga's one chapter on the Bodhisattva vows of Asanga's work. And Bodhisattva's vows, in that Bodhisattva's vows, Lama Tsongkhapa has written, and so he says, since he has already explained that he's not going here, we could go to that, but I think maybe it might be too long. So anyway, those who are interested, then you can look on that commentaries. Then how to generate the ethics in one's mental continuum, Third, pure ethic depends on practicing what is to be engaged, such as 10 virtues actions, and counteracted according to the formulated and reframing from 10 non-virtuous action and so forth, formulated through the rules of Buddhas. Furthermore, they follow the strong and firm wish to guard ethics, So you need to have a very strong determination and strong and firm wish to really guard those ethic, whether it's individual liberations or whether it's the Bodhisattva's vows or any kind of vows that we have taken. And in order to have that strong, firm determinations and wish to do that, then not only after that kind of strong, firm and wish, then we need to practice, engage again and again. And in order to have that strong firmness, then we need to, for it to arise, in order that kind of strong firm, you must meditate for a long time on this advantage of not guarding the ethics, the vows, and advantage of guarding it. The more you see this advantage and the more you find advantage of that, the more you are getting, you have inspirations, wish, and you have more stronger and more firm to keep them, to to guard them. And so here is saying this was explained in above the context of persons of medium capacity. And so Lama Tsongkhapa says he's not going to go too details in there because he has already explained in the past in the middle scope. And then here some of the advantages and disadvantages of guarding and not guarding. In the continuum of perfection, it also says, so there is a two, and then, you cannot attain your own with degenerate ethic. So where would that get the power to others' welfare? So here is saying, if we don't practice the moral ethical discipline, you will not be able to even have high rebirth and your own, you will not be able to attain even the high rebirth. You will not be able to attain your own individual liberation. You will not be able to attain even your highest purpose of your own. And so therefore, then if you are not able to attain your own higher purpose, how can you be able to help others and benefit others? And so therefore, if you are unable to take care of yourself, it's hard to take care of others. And so therefore, similarly here, if you degenerate, you will not only you are not able to obtain your own, then definitely you will not be able to work for the welfare of others. You wouldn't get a powerful welfare of others. Therefore, it's wrong if you make a good effort for others' welfare to loosen your respect to it. So, while trying to help and benefit others, but if you don't keep your own ethic, and you loosen up that, then it doesn't serve good purpose. And again, we can see even in a general, it's like trying to help others by, by being unethical, even in ordinary life, It's like killing someone and then through that, or stealing someone's wealth and through that, then trying to help someone, And so, so therefore, while we are trying to help and benefit others, at the same time, we shouldn't lose our ethical discipline, our moral discipline. We should always guard that, whether we are helping or not helping others all the time. And even when you're trying to help, you shouldn't ignore that ethical discipline. And now those ethic, special path of attainment. So I want the commentary, Lama Tsongkhapa will come later. Accomplish them like a naturally compassionate. They are the excellent nature of pure wisdom, free from errors. They are called the best of ornament, pleasant fragrance, guided in 3 realms. They are the bound not at all to the ordination. Those who have ethics, even though conforming outwardly, will be noble among humans. So here Lama Tsongkhapa is giving a commentary on that verses. This says that in reliance upon the ethic, if we reliance on ethics, if we guard the ethics, your mental continuum will improve more and more, started to transform, started to get better and progress more and more. And through that kind of practice, you become familiar in training in the great beings who are naturally compassionate, like a bodhisattvas, who are naturally compassionate. And we also started to train in that, and slowly, slowly we become like them, Again, the ethic practice is to stop and reframe and restrain from any actions through any of the door that could hurt and harm others. And when you train in that, naturally, of course, you will be more caring, concerned for others. And definitely that will lead to naturally becoming more kind, more compassionate, And you attain the pure exalted wisdom that has abandoned the all seed of faulty contact, and then through the help of that wisdom, through the help of that compassionate and bodhicitta, then you generate exalted wisdom, and that can abandon all the seeds of faulty contact, the seeds, the delusions, the delusions, which are the seed of the faulty or unwholesome contact, Although other ornaments do not beautify very young and very old, the ornament ethic is supreme ornament for whoever possesses it, whether you are young or old or between, since it pleases everyone. So here he's saying, when we are using an ornament to beautify ourselves, whatever kind of ornament, some kind of ornament, it looks beautiful to young people and not to old people. Some kind of ornament, when elderly people wear it, it looks nice to them, but it might not look nice to young one. And some in between. So it looks beautiful to some people, but doesn't look beautiful for others, the external ornaments. But here, this ethic is internal ornament that beautify and suits all kind of people, young, middle, and old. And when someone has that kind of inner ornament of ethic, whoever is around that person, whoever look at everyone's happy and pleased, because that person does not hurt and harm others through their practice of such ethic. And through that, it pleases everyone, and it makes everyone happy, pleasant, and give them a pleasant feeling. And so that ornament is much better than this internal ornament of ethic is much better than external ornament. And then again, it says, although other fine fragrance, scents, external, only spread in the direction of the wind and do not spread in other directions. Like, for example, natural scent that come from, flowers. Let's say there is a beautiful scent from the flowers, and you can smell that scent according to how the wind blows, in that directions, whereby they are one-sided. The internal scent of ethics, fame, spread in all directions, so then, whereas that is, so therefore it is supreme scent. That inner scent of ethics is much more supreme than the external scent. Although ornaments such as sandalwood, which cool the torment of heat, contradict ordinations, because for the ordination monks, you are not allowed to use scent and ornament, those kind of ointment, because those are distractions, and those are, it could be an object of attachment, and so to that. So therefore, it contradicts the ordinations. But the ointment of that protect from the torment of the heat of affliction does not contradict ordination, the practice of ethic discipline, but rather accord with it, So then, and even though you are similar in simply possessing the sign of ordinations, to be endowed with the jewel of ethic is more understanding than anything else. And so, if you don't have the ethic, if someone cannot, as ordinations, if they cannot keep their ethic, if they break their ethic, then it is just simply just a possessing the sign of ordination. Outside, you look a monk or nun ordinated, but inside, you are not really, because you don't have that the ethic, So that is, and therefore, anyone who have the jewel of ethic is more understanding than anything else. And it is the practice of ethic is the foundations of, as we have discussed in the middle scope, the practice of moral discipline or ethical discipline is the foundation for the practice of concentrations and for the practice of wisdom. 3 high trainings. The two other training can be only developed on the basis of the foundation of ethical discipline. And also, it will come also later. And again, from the same text, without expressing words, without much effort, without much physical effort, resource and the service needed for practice gather. If you have the ethic, the practice of ethic, then those resources will come easily. The world bows low without intimidations, naturally, without having you to force others to respect you and bow you, People will naturally respect you and bow you if you have that moral and ethical discipline. Some of the leaders, they try to gain respect through intimidations. It is not working. We can see in this country and part of the countries, they demand respect and vows from others. But that respect and vow will not come if you don't have such ethic. But if someone is very ethical and have that practice, then naturally you don't have to force, you don't have to use intimidations for them to respect you, to vow you. They will naturally do that. So that is what it's saying. Power and wealth are gained without effort and work, And when you have the ethical practice, even we cannot have that immediately in the future, you through the practice of that. Although his lineage may be unworthy of mention, although he did not help and benefit them, all beings, including one you never knew, bow to a being endowed with the ethical discipline. And if you have an ethical discipline, even you have not helped others, benefit others, they will naturally respect and bow to you, Whether people, even you don't knew them before, when they are around you and when they see your ethical discipline, moral discipline, they will naturally be attracted and vow in that. And even though you're, whether you, no matter what status you are, in terms of, in certain countries, certain culture, there is caste system. In certain system, in certain part of that, even though there is no caste system, but there's a class system, And regardless of what your class, what your lineage, if you have the practice of discipline, again, you will naturally attract people's respect. That is what it's saying. Even the dust made auspicious by his feet, and is raised to the head for insensitivity, gods and humans, prostrate so it touch their head and carry it everywhere. Thus, therefore, one should think about advantage as expressed here, So by the more we reflect, contemplate on advantage of guarding those ethical discipline, the vows and ethical discipline, the more we'll be inspired, the more we'll have a strong wish and firm wish to guard it, to practice it, and the more stronger and firm wish that you have, the more stronger practice one will have. The entity of the ethic. So, in terms of the sequences, the importance of the sequences, first, the needs of having the ethic of restraint or refrain, and then the ethic of gathering the virtuous qualities, and then engaging the ethic of working for the welfare of others. That sequences. The reason here is there's a reason to have that kind of sequence in terms of practice. Although there are three kinds of ethic: the ethic of restraint, practicing the engagement, so engaging such as 10 virtuous actions, and avoidance, such as avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions, concerning the formulated rules of individual liberations, or what is common to them, is also important for both sadhavas in the beginning. So it is saying, not only it is important for the practitioners of individual liberations who are engaged in practice to achieve arhat or individual arhat or nirvana, but also it is very important for the bodhisattvas as well. If it is guarded, the other will also guard it. So if you have the ethic of restraint, then the ethic of gathering the virtues and ethic of working for the welfare of others will come. If you don't have that, then other two will not come easily, And if you guard them, you will be able to guard others as well, other ethic. Whereas if it is not guarded, the first one, the ethic of restraint, the other will be not guarded either, If we destroy, if we don't have ethic of restraint, then we wouldn't be able to have a strong practice of the other two ethic, the practice of ethic of gathering the virtues and engage in the welfare of others, that will not. Therefore, the continuum of the determination say that if the ethic of the bodhisattvas vows degenerate, all the vows are degenerated. Whoever think that vows of individual liberation are for hearers, hearers or solitary realizers, and reject their formulated rules of engagement, avoiding saying, I must train in the other bodhisattva's training, has thus not grasped the essential point of training bodhisattva ethic. For it is taught that many times the ethic will stand in the basis and domain of the two subsequent ethics. So here it is saying, you know, sometimes we might take a practice such as the ethic will restrain, such as restraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions. Maybe those are for beginners. Those are for who are practicing for individual liberations. But for bodhisattvas, maybe we think these are not so important. If we think that here, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, we have totally misunderstood and totally, we have not really understood the essential point of the bodhisattva's ethic, you know, and trainings. And because this, the first of those three ethics, is the basis and domain of the two subsequent ethics, you know. If we engage into the practice of the first ethic, then it would be easy. It would be easy, more easier and easy to practice the two other subsequent ethic. But if we don't have good practice of that, then we will never have a good practice of the two subsequent ethics. And so therefore it cannot be, this cannot be ignored. Even for those who are engaged in bodhisattva path. And sometimes it comes, you know, even sometimes sometimes, you know, practitioner, you know, as when they think their practice have advanced, and they have been advanced practitioners, and when they are studying and practicing some of the high practices, you know, then sometimes there is a danger of neglecting and ignoring the very fundamental practice, such as those ethics. And once you ignore and neglect that, then, you know, all other practice will also degenerate. Your bodhicitta will degenerate if you started to ignore and neglect that, the practice of ethical strength. Your bodhicitta will, you know, degenerate. Even if we have both some level of bodhicitta, you know, even if we have certain level of concentration and wisdom, that could also degenerate when you. From the continuum of perfection, the path to the bliss of high birth, such as, you know, human rebirth and God and so forth, and liberation, is not to violate those 10 paths of the actions, you know, the 10 virtuous actions. We cannot, if we violate that, then there is no higher rebirth, there's no liberation, there's no enlightenment. Abiding in them, you will have the special effect and the thought, intention, benefit sentient beings. You know, and then if you have the basis, if you have the good foundations of the, such as refrain 10 non-virtues and engage in 10 virtuous actions, then it's the loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta can arise more easily, and the thought to be the thought intending to benefit sentient beings, the bodhicitta mind, will be easy to develop. Completely restraining one's speech, bodies, one's mind, in summary, is the ethic, said the Victor. The Buddha said, you know, what is the practice? What is the practice of ethic? What does practice of ethic means? So here it is saying, you know, the Buddha said, completely restraining, you know, one's harmful speech, one's harmful body actions, and one's harmful mental actions. That is the ethic. This is the basis comprising all the ethical contact, you know, and this is the basis for the bodhisattva practice, bodhisattva's vows, tantric vows, whether it's the bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, any other ethical contact or vows, you know, this, the basis is refraining from 10 non-virtuous action and engage in 10 virtuous action is the very basis of that, without exceptions. So truly training it, and so without, you know, so that we shouldn't kind of neglect that. Then in summarizing, in brief, to take this as a basis and train again and again in the mind of restraint, that train in the training of whatever ethic one is undertaking in the practice of ethic, you know. So whatever precept, vows that we might have taken, we try to keep them, we try to observe them, we try to guard them by taking and by training as the foundation of on the foundation of all of them, by training in reframing from 10 non-virtuous action and engage in 10 virtuous actions, and that should be making ethic possess the 6 perfections. So again, how can we make the practice of ethical discipline more effective, more stronger? And so by bringing the others 5 perfections of practice in, and then engage in all 6 perfections within the practice of ethical discipline, just as we went through the generosity, you know. So here is saying, how can we apply all practice of 6 perfection within the practice of ethical discipline? So that is, ethics are made to possess the 6 perfection like this. Abiding is one ethic oneself. So while one is practicing the ethical discipline, so that is practice of ethical discipline. While you are practicing the ethical discipline, establishing others to them is generosity. While you are practicing the ethical discipline yourself, inspiring and encouraging and helping others to engage in the practice of ethical discipline is the practice of generosity of ethical discipline. While you are practicing the ethical discipline, you know, and trying to refrain from hurting and harming others through any of the 3 doors, and when people respond to you in a negative way, or the hurtful way, unpleasant way, being patient with that. So while you are practicing the moral ethical discipline and not trying to refrain from hurting others, and when someone try to kind of hurt you, but still engage in practice the patience while you are practicing. That is the practice of patience, of ethical discipline. And while, you know, when you are practicing the ethical discipline, having the joyous effort in that practice. When you are engaged in practice, such as the ethical discipline, cultivating the joyous effort in that practice is the practice of joyous effort of ethical discipline, you know. And while we are practicing the ethical discipline, you know, being very mindful, and alert, and being very focused in your practice of that. Being focused, attentive, and concentrated while you are practicing the ethical discipline. That is the concentration of ethical discipline. Because sometimes even when we are trying to practice the ethical discipline, such as practice as ethical discipline, we might be doing that without being so much mindful, without being so much alert, without being so much focused, attentive, and concentrated. So bringing that kind of mindfulness, alertness, attention and concentration and focus, and through that then we, and while we're practicing the ethical discipline, you know, bringing the wisdom by seeing, you know, for example, we're trying to practice the ethical discipline of, you know, not taking lives of others, you know, while we're engaged in the not taking the lives of others, sometimes not only not taking the lives of others, but actually saving the lives of others, while we're engaged in the virtues of saving the lives of others, or not refraining from taking the life of others, by seeing your act of not taking the lives, the practice of not taking the life, the other's life itself, the person yourself who is engaged in that practice, seeing all of them as non-inherent existence, you know. Or if we are not stealing, you know, the object of that, you know, refrain from stealing the object, the wealth, whatever that object, seeing that is not non-inherent existence. That object itself, yourself who is practicing that of reframing, is also non-inherent existence. And the practice itself of reframing, that practice itself is non-inherent existence. By seeing all of that, then again, we bring the wisdom into the practice of ethical discipline. And therefore, in that way, then we bring all the practice of 6 perfections within the practice of ethical discipline. And when we are able to do that, when we are able to bring all the 6 perfections together within each of those perfections, within the practice, then that practice becomes extremely powerful, effective. And so, so that is, so then I think next it comes to the patience. Maybe we could, I don't know whether you have any, if anyone has any questions so far. Does anyone has any questions or comments? Mention 11 times, bring about the welfare of sentient being, or repeat the name of the committee you mentioned. Sorry, I missed it. I don't know whether there is the English translation, but I believe there is English translations. Changsam Suldum gi Suldum gi namshe. It is in Tibetan is Suldum gi namshe means clear explanations of the moral discipline. From the chapter of Asanga's Changsa, the Bodhisattva's ground. Yeah, if people doesn't have questions, I could go through those 11 of that, but I want to, yes, please. Can you unmute? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. I just have a brief comment that you're describing a practice well above what I can practice, but putting it in the context in the way you did, it gives me an idea of how I can start, just in small steps, but just by, I don't know, I can't express it very well, but it just gave a picture of how I can start to do what you're describing. And I found that really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Any other has any comments, questions? If not, then I could go through the 11 of that. Yes. So the first one that again you do see mentioning of 12, 11 way of working for the welfare of sentient beings, that you do see that mentioning in many places, in many texts as well. And also I think when we were it has also mentioned some other instance as well. So one of them, again, these are the different 11 way of working for the welfare of others in these and future lives from different sources of sutras, and that has been put together, you know. So, and of course, working for the welfare of others does not include everything in these 11, you know. There are hundreds ways, thousands ways of working for the welfare of other sentient beings, you know, or maybe even 100,000 ways. So many different ways that a bodhisattva or someone can work for the welfare of other sentient beings and help and benefit other sentient beings. But those 11 are particular that has been mentioned in different sutras, and that has been compiled, you know. So the first one is, you know, helping those who are on the those who are traveling on the way, you know. And so those who are lost on the way and who need a help, showing them help, and even they are tired, you know, and so forth, you know. And also it says, you know, helping others, like those who are farmers and so forth, helping and showing them how to farm properly without misdeed, without hurt, without non-virtues and so forth, you know. Or, you know, giving a medicine to the sick people, or helping those who have physically challenged people, those who are blind, helping them to show the path. And when there's famines, helping them and so forth, you know. And so this is, or when there is like tsunami, you know, and then again when people have problem because of such, helping them. So those are some of the help that is within the first. And second is, you know, helping those who are ignorant, you know. And so in that way, helping them to show what is the right thing to do, what is not the right thing to do, what is beneficial, what is not beneficial, what is virtues, what is not virtues, helping them to clear their ignorance about that. If they are engaged in some of the non-virtuous actions, you know, helping them, inspiring, encouraging, and helping them to stop and to turn away from such harmful and non-virtuous actions, you know, and helping from the, so immediately helping them that, and in long term, helping the sentient beings how to free themselves from their delusions, and helping them to see how harmful the delusions are and how they shouldn't embrace such delusions. And through that kind of, you know, by giving such through that kind of opening their eyes and clearing their ignorance. In other words, you know, giving them a knowledge, educations that can clear their ignorance. So basically giving them educations, you know, whatever, whether through sign language, whether it's through your speech, in whatever way that we can, to clear their misunderstanding, their ignorance, you know. And then the third one is helping, benefiting, engage in activities or helping and benefiting others. And then in order to repair the kindness of other sentient beings, trying to help and benefit, that help and benefit in short term and long terms. And repaying not by remembering the kindness of other sentient beings and not forgetting them and trying to repay that kindness. And not forgetting them, not forgetting the sentient beings who have been kind in many, from many lifetimes, and being very remembering and not forgetting, and by while not forgetting, remembering their kindness, trying to repay them their kindness in whatever way we can help and benefit them. And the fourth one is engage in the actions to help them to free from the fear, you know. So again, you know, if someone is in a fearful state, you know, due to whatever conditions, due to whatever, trying to help them to overcome their fear, you know, trying to help them to reduce and overcome their fears in whatever way that we can help them to do that, you know, verbally, physically, in whatever way, you know. And helping those who have been harmed by sentient beings and non-sentient beings, you know. And for example, you know, when someone is being harmed, even though someone has not engaged in any kind of, even though someone has not engaged in any crime, sometimes, you know, they have been punished, prison without, and for that, you know, helping them, for example, human rights will be one of them, you know, for example, engage in such act, you know. Yeah, like, you know, without proving someone has done a crime, putting them into the prisons and harming them, for example, helping them to free from prisons or any others harm, for example, like that. So this is, you know, protecting from the harm of the human beings, harm from the animals, harm from the environment or natural disasters, you know. And also, if we kind of protecting the environment, by protecting the environment, then we are indirectly helping and to protect the animals that live in those environments, as well as the human beings, you know. So engaging such because even though it does not give them, you know, direct harm, but indirectly, some of them directly harm them, and some of them it doesn't harm directly now, but it can harm indirectly in the future, you know. So that, and then 5 is helping those who are being overwhelmed by grief and sorrow, you know. And for example, I mean, in the now at times, you know, when someone lose their dear and close ones, whether someone's parents, children, siblings, friends, people go through a lot of grief, sadness, and sometimes they can be very much overwhelmed by that, and trying to help them, or their wife, husband, and so forth, and so, or when someone has separate, when there is divorce or separations, because of such separations, again, there can be a lot of grief and suffering and pain and sadness, also helping them to deal with that. Or when someone lose their wealth, whether someone has taken away the power or by thief, or now in present situations, where some people have lost their business, their job, due to losing of their business, due to losing of their job, there's a lot of grief, sadness, fear, and so forth, so helping them with that, And sometimes, because of the sickness, even in now, due to different kind of sickness, and there's a lot of grief as well, and so helping them to reduce and overcome that, whatever grief, whatever sadness that they are going through due to whatever condition and situations. And then sixth one is helping those, who are derived of wealth, who are in poor and poverty, So those, those who are starving, with the food, those who are struggling with the proper drinking water, for example, even drinking water, proper drinking water, clean and proper drinking waters, and so forth, So helping them in whatever way we can help, providing the food and drinks to help them to overcome their suffering of hunger and thirst, And also when people are traveling and when they are tired, and that offering, water, food, and so forth, And helping those who are staying in your areas, or in your place, So for example, as an employee, taking care of their employer taking care of their employee, instead of thinking that I'm the boss and totally neglecting because they are employee and not taking care of them. Instead, taking care of them, for example, by understanding they are also human beings like us. Others are also sentient beings like us. And with that, wish to helping them, looking after them, and even when we become a leader of any organizations or business, anything, not being kind and compassionate, those who work for you, and not overburdening them, because you think I'm paying because I'm boss, so therefore demanding too much. Instead, being kind and compassionate, and then trying to understand the others' suffering and trying to be helpful and beneficial in whatever way, you know. And then, yeah, providing, you know, yeah. Sometimes when you are not in that positions, you know, we demand all the benefits from that. But once we are in that position, then we try to cut all the benefits, and not doing that, you know. When we are not in that position as the leader of that organizations or the countries or of that, we feel they are not compassionate enough, they are not caring, and we think they should be providing more of that. But when we are in that position, then again, we do the same thing, you know. And so instead of that, being compassionate and kind and caring, you know. And then helping to fulfill the wishes of other sentient beings, you know. So that means, you know, trying to help and benefit according to the needs of other sentient beings, you know, according to their needs, according to and it is important. I think that is one of the practice of Bodhisattvas and important. Sometimes we don't think what is the needs of others. We only think what is good, because I think it is good, then I take for granted other things that is good. Because it's beneficial to me, therefore I take for granted everyone think that is beneficial. And so without knowing the others, without asking others, that we take. So instead, trying to help according to what their needs are. You know, sometimes what we think is not what their needs. Their needs are different than what we think. And so that is one of the things, yeah. And then 9, those who are in the right path, you know, helping and benefiting them, you know. So those who are on the right path with the practice of, you know, faith, as we talk today, in a moral discipline and studying practice, and who have those qualities, we try to encourage them. We try to inspire them to do those practice, studying and practice more and more, you know. So they are already on the path, on the right path. And so we encourage and inspire them to continue to be on the right path by praising them or by encouraging them in whatever way, giving them more confidence and so forth, you know. And of course, as a teachers to the students, as a parent to the children, that is giving some kind of encouragement when they are on the right path, you know, when they are on the positive path, when they are in virtuous path, giving them encouragement so they can. And the 10th, and when someone is engaging into another sentiment, engaged in a very harmful and non-virtuous actions, and then again, you know, sometimes we might have to, in order to discourage them from engaging in that, sometimes we might have to be tough and taking the tough actions in order to help them to stop from engaging in such a very harmful actions and such a strong non-virtuous actions. And then the 11 is helping sentient beings, by showing psychic powers, which we don't have, but those who have psychic powers, through their psychic powers, then trying to help them by using that. Yeah, so that would be more for a more advanced practitioner who have more kind of that kind of power. So I think those are the kind of the 11 different way of helping and benefiting other sentient beings that we often see in different scriptures, time to time texts. Okay, so I think that is. So if there is any other questions, I can take one more. Otherwise, we will do the dedications. Oh, so here I think everyone can see the ethic. Both has sent Asanga chapter on ethic. We commented on Tsongkhapa. Okay. So we can do the dedications then. Due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the suffering of both body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues my merit. May no living creature suffer, may commit evil or ever fall ill, nor no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by the depression. May the blind see forms, may the deaf hear sound, and may those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored, finding repose. May the naked find clothing, and the hunger find food, and may the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, and those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rain and bountiful harvest, and may all medicine be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from all their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, until then may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. I guess you might have to change the I there, until I. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subdued moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading, mention not victorious rotting, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayer, honoring the three jewels, Savior, myself, and others, your disciple, please live long. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.